Let's face it, being a femboy is probably somewhat unhealthy. If you're on this channel, you're either a femboy or you're just a sensitive and emotional guy. Either way, both are welcome. When you go on self-improvement videos or videos making fun of like sensitive guys, you probably see lots of stuff like find God or find Allah or you will not be welcome in God's kingdom. Lots of negative judgmental comments from Christian or Muslim guys. Now, of course, they're recommending that you be manly men like them and that you follow their particular religion, but they do not know what you need. You are either a more emotional, more sensitive, or more feminine guy. So I know what you need because I've been in your shoes and I am like a more feminine, emotional, sensitive guy. And I know what was necessary for me to get more discipline. My way's not the only way, but it's definitely the most helpful, I think. I'm going to recommend Buddhism. Now, I'm not recommending that you outright become a Buddhist. I'm not recommending you become a practicing Buddhist, but you can be sort of a metaphorical Buddhist, like a metaphorical Christian, someone who follows the doctrine but doesn't believe the actual supernatural claims of the religion. There are plenty of people like that with regards to Christianity, and you can do the same in Buddhism. First, I'll tell you why I wouldn't recommend Christianity. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't believe in God. I'm not saying you should or should not believe in this. You can believe in God, whatever. What I'm saying is you shouldn't research really heavily into Christianity while like being tormented by your femboy or feminine man identity, because I've done that while being on self-improvement, and it just complicates things even more. It makes things even worse, because whereas before you weren't really hyperfixating that much on your femininity and you didn't feel that compelled to be like really macho, now you're reading all this stuff that tells you God says this, God says this, God says this, and you're like confused and you feel so conflicted and you end up hyperfixating on any little feminine thing you do, and you end up just completely thinking, I should be a completely macho man. That's exactly what happened to me. And you know what happened once I stopped that? Once I took a breather? I looked around my college campus and I realized, wait, most men aren't macho. The vast majority of traditionally masculine guys are not even really that macho. So what am I worrying about? There were so many teachers and so many other male classmates like my age who were like even somewhat feminine. Even some conservative guys I spoke with I thought had like a slightly feminine like intonation. So like you're really worried. It just makes you hyper worry over nothing. Buddhism doesn't make you hyperfixate on that. And one of the things that I love the most about Buddhism is that it essentially says the same things about Christianity with regard to morality. Like the same things are forbidden. Does that mean Buddhism doesn't allow you to mix two cloths? No, obviously the stuff that's like highly specific to the Jewish law in the Old Testament, obviously that's specific to the Old Testament. But like with regard to a lot of morality, they're both very similar. But Buddhism does not have a judgmental father figure. So you're trying to overcome the same exact sins and inadequacies without this judgmental being hovering over your head who's just ready to send you to hell. Now you may be thinking, that's not the way I see God. Well, congratulations, you're luckier than me. That's the way I saw God for most of my life. And you could argue that that's a problem in and of itself, that you need to stop seeing God as like a really hyper judgmental father figure who's ready to cast you down and throw the book at you at any given moment, and that you should probably see him in a more fatherly, like loving light. That's definitely something you could do, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Real quickly, I'll just say you might benefit from imagining Mary more, like imagining her interceding for you more, or imagining the father as a shepherd guiding his sheep rather than a judgmental father, or even imagine him as a sheep, the sacrificial lamb. Imagine God as like an innocent sheep trying to help you out. That harder to get judgment there. But yeah, the 5 precepts in Buddhism: do not kill, do not take what isn't yours, do not lie, engage in false speech, slander, gossip, or speak to divide people, no sexual misconduct, and no intoxicants. And if you get into the really Christian self-improvement sphere, where like you probably shouldn't play video games, or you probably shouldn't like listen to this kind of music, you probably shouldn't be on social media, like Buddhism says the same thing, but less judgmentally. Like according to Buddhism, yeah, you shouldn't use social media. You shouldn't really play that many video games. You shouldn't listen to certain type of music because it's all making you more attached to the world and it leads to more suffering. Buddhism feels more like it's watching out for you. Like, hey, I want you to avoid suffering and this is for your own good. Obviously, Christianity says the same thing, but like I don't know, the teachers I had didn't do a good job of instilling into me that it was for my own good. It felt more like I was just following God's arbitrary rules because he said so. Now, specifically onto the femboy side, what does Buddhism say about femboys? Buddhism, like, really, like, by the book Buddhism says, yeah, you shouldn't be a femboy. Same as Christianity. But not for the same reason Christianity does. With Christianity, it's more about you're a man, so you have to be the leader. You have to be macho. You have to, at least this is the interpretation I see of many versions of Christianity. I'm more starting to open up again to Christianity because when I went to Costa Rica, I saw, oh, hey, a lot of guys here don't believe in that. Like, they're fairly, like, good with their wives. They're not, like, hyper macho. So yeah, I'm starting to open up to that again, but anyways. Buddhism says the same thing, but specifically because if you're a femboy, you're probably completely involved in sensuality, completely involved in sexuality. Obviously, you're probably not a person who's going to give that up completely and be celibate, but you should calm down with it because it is making you more attached to this world. It is making you suffer more. It leads to more long-term and short-term suffering because you're constantly grasping for these things and you're being led about it. Like, you have no idea how many of your actions are, like, motivated by sexuality, and it's not good. So yeah, if you're a femboy and you're interested in religions or philosophies, you're probably interested in Buddhism at one point. You're also probably really Christian at one point. So I feel like this was a good intersection video. I would recommend you look more into Buddhism than Christianity because Buddhism says like the same exact moral things, but it's less judgmental because no like overbearing father figure. At least that's the interpretation I had. I look forward to talking about this topic more again, but that's where we're gonna leave off for now. See ya.